All right, yeah, I saw this on TikTok too. It's funny that you're like, you should do this segment next because you saw it on TikTok. I saw it on TikTok too, and I thought this was absolutely preposterous. So this story's a little bit old, but I still thought it was worth talking about. It's called "Father Sentenced to 6 months in Jail for Overpaying Child Support," and apparently he was seeing his kid too much. Oh wait, hold on. There's a Snopes thing that says false. A January 2014 news story about this man named Clifford Hall who was sentenced to county jail for 180 days in child support issue despite his not knowing any child support was widely reported as a case of a man who was sentenced for paying too much child support. The details of this issue presented in the news accounts were somewhat unclear, but the claim that Hall was punished for paying too much child support was a misinterpretation of the facts of the case. Based on Hall's side of the story, the crux of the matter was that, as maintained by Hall, a court agreement specifying child support and visitation terms was modified without his knowledge, resulting in his underpaying child support and taking custody of his son outside of court-approved visitation schedule. When Hall found out about the modified terms, in order to avoid jail time, he quickly paid nearly $3,000 in back child support, despite he claims, having never been told during a court appearance several weeks earlier that he was all paid up. He agreed to pay the child's mother $3,000 in attorney fees. Nonetheless, Judge Lisa Millard found Hall in contempt of court and sentenced him to 180 days in county jail for some combination of his failure to pay required child support on time, his failure to follow the court's scheduled visitation time with his son, and or his walking out of the courtroom in the middle of a hearing. News accounts at the time were murky about which of these factors was the basis for the sentence. However, court records indicate that Hall was straightforwardly held in contempt of court for failure to pay child support in a case which had a motion for contempt dating back to April 2013, and a court document briefly glimpsed into Houston television news report about the case shown above displays a header indicating Hall was indeed held in contempt for failure to pay child support. Oh, so he was previously held in contempt for failure to pay child support, so this wasn't the first time. Yikes. Okay, the information presented in the news accounts indicating that Hall owed nearly $3,000 in back child support, and the child's mother had incurred $3,000 in attorney fees trying to enforce their court agreement, suggested that this was a long time running and ongoing support issue rather than a sudden and recent one. Nothing presented in the original KRIV-TV news report on the case actually stated that Hall overpaid child support. It's quite clear that he paid nearly $3,000 in back child support, implying that he was paying an amount already past due, even if he was previously unaware he owed it. Not overpaying an amount he didn't owe yet. Later, a news account stated that Hall paid an additional $1,000 over what he already owed. However, under Texas law, for an obligor, somebody I guess obligated to avoid contempt charges in a child support case, he must be current on all child support obligations at the time of the enforcement hearing, not just current on obligations originally listed in the motion to enforce that prompt. So apparently it sounds like he might have gotten up to speed on the money he owed, but it wasn't fast enough. He had to have it done before like the hearing, before the enforcement, at the time of the enforcement, not the enforcement hearing. And he didn't have it for that, I guess. Even the most sympathetic explanation offered by Hall's lawyer didn't claim that Hall was sent to jail for overpaying. Rather, his lawyer maintained that his child support payments were not made on time due to a clerical error. And a recent change in Texas law meant that those who fell behind in their payments for whatever reason could not avoid jail time by retroactively getting their accounts up to date. Well, why? That doesn't make any sense to me. His falling behind was not even due to his own transgression, but rather was caused by a clerical error, his paycheck to the employer. The payments, oh, this is the lawyer statement, I think. The payments were supposed to come out of his check automatically, but when it was discovered that the payments were being withdrawn only sporadically, Hall racked up an impressive bill that forced him to pay almost $3,000 past due. The problem, as his lawyer explained, lies in laws passed back in 2013 that repeals protections for parents paying child support who may fall behind. Before, if you paid in full after falling behind, there was no problem. However, after the statute was passed, that all changed. The law, in Elam's view, was designed to target deadbeats who widely fell behind and used the protections to their benefit. Now, however, it catches all parents with late benefits on its dragnet. So apparently, though, she had to sue him to get the money. So if you're going by that, if she actually had to sue him and like incurred her own like $3,000 in law court costs, that means that he wasn't paying. And when he found out he didn't immediately pay, he waited until he went to court. After exhausting his appeals options, Clifford Hall eventually spent 8 days in the jail, the Harris County Jail, and was released on the 2nd. Okay, so he stayed in there for about a week. Hall may have suffered an injustice, but nothing in the information presented about this case other than the catchy headlines over-sensationalized re-reporting of the original story supported the interpretation of Clifford Hall was sentenced for paying too much child support. Other sources reported more accurately that Hall was jailed for failing to pay child support, even though by the time he was sentenced, he was fully paid up. Okay, so interesting, because this has been going around on TikTok, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to talk about this. I want to talk about like something where, you know, a guy gets a raw deal. He may have still gotten a raw deal. It seems like maybe he just fell. It's possible he just fell behind, and you know he needed a little more time, and he paid up, and they still got him. Or it's possible that he didn't pay up until she had to sue, and then like because it said that she has incurred her own lawyer costs. We're still gonna watch the video. Interesting though that how this kind of like misinformation gets pushed out there. It's interesting that they never changed the title, though. Although this is, oh, wait, this isn't, oh, interesting. This was posted 8 years ago, and they never took it down. I wonder why. Let's see.
Well, a Houston father is facing 180 days in jail for overpaying his child support and over-visiting his 11-year-old son.
Oh, we never heard anything about the over-visiting part. I wonder what that's about.
His attorney and a community activist are now demanding answers. Randy Wallace joins us live with a story you'll see only on Fox. Randy?
Don, we all expect to see judges throw the book at fathers who fail to pay child support. But a father,
by the way, that's good.
Father who says he's been doing the right thing now has an arrest warrant against him.
It's my responsibility to take care of it. You know, I brought him in this world. I have to.
Clifford Hall says he's...
It's interesting, though. The title, I wonder, the title, it says that the father is sentenced 6 months, but here it says father who owes no child support still faces jail time. So you see that the title is actually, based on what we read, is a little dishonest.
More than happy to pay.
Because it sounds like he might have caught up. Maybe he just fell behind. You got, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's a good dad. He just fell behind. He didn't really realize it. It's possible. And they kind of threw the book at him. I think that could be unfair, but it's certainly not the way that it's presented.
Child support for his 11-year-old son.
I'm his father. You know, it's my responsibility to take care of it.
But Hall says when the amount of child support was modified, no one told him.
And I discovered that for some reason his employer was withholding a large amount some weeks, a small amount some weeks, zero amount some weeks.
And I didn't want to go to jail, basically.
So Hall quickly paid almost $3 grand in back child support. When Hall and his ex-wife were in Judge Lisa Millard's court last November, he owed nothing.
Opposing counsel testified twice that he's all paid up.
But the attorney...
Okay, so... all right, yeah. I feel bad for the guy still.
Representing the child's mother wanted Hall to pay her $3 grand in attorney fees, and Judge Millard agreed.
Well, I mean, that's the only thing that works against him is that apparently here's the problem, right? So this is like the timeline that we're presenting for him. It's like, hey, you know, basically the money comes out of his check, right? So they take the money out of his check, right? They take it out of his check. Okay, that makes perfect sense. But what happened is that they weren't taking enough, basically, overall. Sometimes they take too much. Sometimes they wouldn't take anything. Sometimes they don't take a little bit. So they weren't taking enough. So that makes sense. And then when he found out, he paid up. The problem is that if it's true that once he found out, he immediately started paying up, it doesn't make sense that she would have to go to the point of her, like the ex-wife getting a lawyer, right? Logically, the ex-wife shouldn't need to get a lawyer at all. So if common sense, and I could be wrong, it sounds more like he wasn't paying up. She told him, he didn't really care. And then once he got really important and legal, he's like, fuck, I'm going to have to pay up. You know, that's what makes more sense to me. I still don't know if he should have gone, you know, court. I mean, maybe I'm just wrong about that. Or I don't think he should have had to go to jail, but, you know, because it doesn't make sense that she would have to incur. I would imagine that she's like, yo, you're not paying my child. Maybe she didn't communicate with him. I don't know, but hey, you're not paying child support. And he's like, what? And he didn't really care until he got sued. So that's what makes logical sense to me. I could be wrong.
Court documents also reveal Hall wasn't following the court's scheduled times to pick up his son. Another modification he says he knew nothing about.
The judge ended up sentencing him to 6 months in jail.
Damn, that seems way disproportionate, though.
She said,
like, because nothing says, how is that good for the kid? Like, nothing. That was like good for the kid to put him in jail for 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a simple mistake. But
you know,
But I guess this wasn't the first time. The Snopes thing we read also said that this was like the second time.
Ran you to the Harris County Jail for 180 days. My mouth just dropped.
This entire situation is shocking to me.
Man.
I've never seen one like this.
Community activist Cornell X wants the state's judicial board to investigate.
The court failed the child. The court failed Mr. Hall. The system broke down.
I can't be there for my son in jail. I can't pay child support in jail. You know, this is not in the best interest of the child.
Judge Lisa Millard says Hall walked out of court after he was found in contempt, which she says is a big no-no.
Oh, yeah. He did that, too. He just walked out of court before he was dismissed. You can't do that.
Judge Millard also points out Hall's attorney could have filed a motion for reconsideration. She says that would have allowed her to hear both sides again and reevaluate the situation. Hall's attorney is now
this guy's struggling,
working on an appeal, and in a few days, Hall plans to turn himself in, and Don will, of course, keep everybody posted on how this plays out.
It really is a strange situation.
Very, very, very strange. I mean, it kind of shows that sometimes these things can be changed, modified. Maybe one parent doesn't know, but it's very confusing, and you've got to wonder how this man could go to jail for this.
All right.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. A little more complicated than I thought it was, but okay, cool. Combating TikTok misinformation.
I want Papa God to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.